What's good, fam? How's everybody doing tonight? It's life's been lifing again, and uh, I'm trying to get myself together and start s- live streaming on a regular basis, but I've allowed life to get in the way. But we gonna pray about that so that I can get in here and have these open conversations that I so think are needed to help open the minds of others. Kind of think outside of your normal box. Tonight, we are going to talk about Cam Newton, and it's a fairly old, when I mean old, like a couple of weeks old, video where he opened up about his thoughts on marriage, divorce, and the desire to expand his ever so large family. But before we get into that, I have to introduce you to tonight's sponsor, Bowie Insurance Agency. From your home to your business, Bowie Insurance Agency provides tailored solutions and expert advice. Get a free quote today and make sure you tell Ebony that Texas Brown Sugar sent you. Again, Bowie Insurance Agency. Tonight, we're going to talk about why are men avoiding long-term relationships? And if you are a man, please feel free to get in the comments. And if you would love to come up on the stage and have this discussion with me, I invite you. Come on up because I would really like to hear the male perspective. I've spoken to a couple of men and have a general idea, but I always like to hear from the men themselves. Ladies, it's always good to listen to the men themselves instead of having me sit here and tell you this. But Cam has been has had the opportunity to make a lot of millions. If you don't know him, he is um, a football star, and he recently sat down with a Dr. Bryant. You know what? I'm just gonna let the video speak for itself. Let's check out what Cam had to say, and this is very interesting.
Deficit without daddy being there.
Think that I'm not high function.
What situation?
Okay, so I'm not married. I have beautiful children.
How many?
8.
By how
8.
many women?
3. And this is the kicker. I want more.
By multiple women? What's the intent?
I
Of
just
saying,
want
or
God
by
to
your
bring
wife?
them. I just want God to bring them.
Oh, okay.
My
Okay, wait a minute. I I gotta stop there. A lot of people have this mentality that God is like this genie, that he is going to provide you with any and everything that you want. I believe people interpret, was it Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 and 8, um, where he basically speaks to the fact that, you know, you ask and he'll answer. Uh, so that I'm going to read it straight to you. So Matthew 7:7 says, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. I think people take that literally. But I think you also have to ask yourself, having, because he just said he got 8 children and he wants more. Having all of these children without marrying any of their mothers, is this the will of God? Is this what God wants for you, for these children, for these children's mother? And a lot of people get that confused. Oh, I can just ask God for it and he's going to give it to me. It don't work that way. Uh, God also said he will give you what you need. But what's key is, that's why it's important to know and have a relationship with God, in addition to getting rooted into the word. I am not an expert at the Bible. Lord is working with me to get better about my word, but I know I'm not a beginner. I'm getting there. But I also know that God doesn't work that way. And if you read the Bible specifically, let me see if I can find it. I think it was Saint James. James, uh, 4th chapter, 3rd verse, I think it is. When you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. So just because you ask for it doesn't mean that you are going to get it. Your motives are not right. It's not the will of God. And for us to continue to live a life where we think that God is going to continue to bless us and provide us all of our wants, and we're still living foul, it's a messed up mindset. And this is for everybody. I'm not picking on just one person, but I think we need to understand that just because we ask does not mean that we are going to get it. That's a whole nother topic that we can get into later, but let's continue on with what else Cam had to say.
Desire to get married is lower than my fear of divorce. So, as you
Did you hear that? His desire to get married is lower than his fear of divorce. So essentially, Cam's saying, hey, I don't want to be in a long-term relationship because I am afraid I'm going to get a divorce. How many guys out there are in the same situation where you feel like you can't get in a long-term relationship because you have a feeling it's just going to end up in divorce? Sure, plenty. But we can't live in fear. And that's where it's key that we learn to choose wisely.
would say it, Dr. Brian. You said it. I didn't say it. I will agree. I'm just taking my time.
You're not taking your time.
I am, though.
You're being very action-based. You're not taking your time.
I'm taking my time.
You're being very action-based. You have 8 kids with 3 different women.
Yes.
You are creating, procreating, and multiplying. That is not taking your time. You're being very selectively active. Okay? So you're creating, in disclaimer, the kids are innocent, they are beautiful and amazing. Anything I say has nothing to do with them babies. But you are proactively choosing where you want to be active at and where you want to take your time. You want to take your time in having a wife because of your own fears. But you will, and I say this with all respect and love, what I'm about to say next, okay, Cam? But you will selfishly create broken families, even if you're in their life and you're a proactive father, and I believe you're an amazing daddy. I can only imagine with just your presence and knowing you. But these families are still broken. every child cannot have papa in the house with them. So some child, if not all will end up with some kind of deficit without daddy being there. Now, you chose to do.
Okay, so she made a very valid point. She indicated that because he wasn't ready to marry, but yet he was ready to have children, that he was being selfish. How many of you believe that he is acting out of selfishness? And Cam isn't the only person who has this same thought process. There are others, not just men, but there are women as well who have this selfish thought process. And I think when we make these decisions, we're not seeing the whole picture. We're not looking at it as if, how are the children involved? How is the woman that's carrying these children? How will she be affected by these choices that I make? I wholeheartedly agree. It's a selfish aspect because he's operating out of fear. But what else is causing men to avoid long-term relationships where they feel that the need to have children without marrying or having a long-term relationship with the mother? Everyone says divorce, okay, but there's still that 50% of marriages that do last. And assuming that you are scared of divorce because 50% end in divorce, what is it that you aren't willing to do to fight? Because honestly, I see a lot of it happening where people are quick to give up on relationships. Point blank, period. Nobody said this was going to be easy. Nobody. I say it all the time. Anything worthwhile having is difficult. You think having children is easy? Sometimes having children is harder than marriage. So if I'm afraid to put in work to keep a relationship going, what what does that look like for my kids? Am I going to put in the work to do right by my children? Let me tell you, these kids, they will test you all the way. Hmm. Let's move on.
Do that. I'm not saying you sat there and woke up one morning and said, I want to be selfish today, so I'm going to go make a baby. Not saying that at all. But those are selfish acts at the expense of your fear. And yeah, that is a low functioning behavior to say that I'm going to build these houses and put kids and these beautiful women and kids in them, but I ain't going to create a home in them. I'm going to wait till I dissipate my fear to find a wife where I'm still going to be fearful with, because there's no such thing as not having some type of nerve or some type of feeling behind marrying somebody. And then I'm going to build a home with her while all these other beautiful babies have houses. That's completely unfair and that's selfish. And so, yes, you're taking your time in this department, but you're not taking your time in this department, which means you're compartmentalizing. And compartmentalizing never works. Compartmentalizing hurts everybody involved. Everybody who's in this box and that box and this box and that box and this box. And then here you go over here trying to figure out what box you're going to feed or entertain or do. Then you're looking outside to figure out who's your next victim to put in the box. It's unhealthy.
Man, it's a lot to unpack in that. Shout out to Allie. She's on Instagram. She says, I pray for what God's will is to accept it, especially when I have a specific prayer. He is being selfish. Speaking of Cam, his avoidance come from childhood trauma, maybe what he saw as a child. Ooh, facts. That that gets into my question is, his fear of marriage, is it based off of his experiences in the past? he says I believe his mother and father are still together. So is it what he's seen his mother and father go through? Is it his past experiences with relationships? Because that could be a big one. And I think that can sometimes be hard to overcome when you have had failed relationship after failed relationship after failed relationship. I'm not gonna lie. I before I met my husband, I was like almost done with dating. No joke. I was like, Lord, it is what it is. I will be content if I am by myself for the rest of my life. I'll be content. I won't be happy, but you know what? I'll be content because I know that that's your purpose. That's whatever it is. And I can easily see how past experiences shape how you view the future. One of the things you most definitely have to do is, A, you've got to learn from your past breakups. It's a two-way street. Both parties had some fault at this. You have to understand where your fault is. Could I have done this better? Could, I have communicated better and tell him, hey, this bothers me. It's a lot that you have to unpack when you break up with somebody. And one of them is the lessons learned. And hopefully you can see as you go from relationship to relationship to relationship an improvement in who you are. You are a better person. You've learned to be a better girlfriend. You've learned to be a better wife. And I feel as if you are in that space where you are constantly improving, then there's no reason for you to believe that your marriage will end in divorce. How again, why do you guys think that people, men specifically, are avoiding these long-term relationships? I've heard a lot from the guys saying that these modern women are selfish and they don't know how to treat a man. Ladies, do we not know how to treat a man? Do we not know how to respect a man? Also, do you think our choices in relationships, speaking, because Dr. Brian called out Cam for being selfish, significantly impacts others. So if you are in a relationship and you have this I'm grown, I can do whatever I want type of attitude, and you're not really considering your spouse, your significant other, are you making decisions based solely on you? I, I, Tiffany said total accountability. They do not want to be held responsible for their actions, and vice versa. Women do the same, but we gaslight better. Tiffany. Tiffany's saying it's accountability. Are we holding each other accountable? I me, I don't do a good job of that. I don't hold people accountable. A lot of times what I end up doing is I end up picking up where they lack. And that is the total opposite of what you should be doing. Because then it becomes burdensome. And maybe the men don't want to be in a relationship because they are selfish. They don't want to be held accountable to be a good boyfriend because it takes effort. Y'all know it takes effort to be in a relationship. Oh, Tiffany said we gaslight better. Ali said, marriage is not for the weak. Speaking on being divorced twice, my BFF and her hubby teaches their children that the most important thing to do is to choose the right partner in life and to have children. Ali, I'm so with you on this one. And I think a lot of people miss the mark, and the key word is life. I I wonder sometimes when people saying they're ready to get married or are preparing to get married, do they realize that this person is with me for life through all of my ups and my downs, through all of my young times and when I get old? Do I want this dude changing my diaper? Do I want this woman changing my diaper? I think we, as the older generation, fail to teach the younger generation what it really takes to be in a long term relationship. All we see is the good things. With my parents, with my family, all I saw, kissing, hugging, loving on each other. It was very few and far between that I was present when there were arguments, when there were times when my parents had to work at their relationship. I didn't see that. Maybe I didn't want to see it, but I didn't see that. And then it was never discussed. And I think Tiffany and Allie, it's key that we sit down and have these discussions with this younger generation that it's okay to be in a long-term relationship, but know you're gonna have to put in work. But if you ain't ready to put in that work, don't get into that long-term relationship. If you want to be selfish, don't get into that relationship. And I wholeheartedly believe that people are not going into marriage, into these long-term relationships, thinking that it's going to be forever because they already have these preconceived notions that 50% of the time this relationship's not going to work out. And we have to get out of that mindset. We have to look at it from the glass is half full and not half empty. Tiffany said that sowing the royal oats comment Eddie Murphy made messed them all up. I agree. And that is like my favorite movie. No lie. Um s- I want to thank y'all for hanging out with me, and this has been such a joy to hang here. And again, we have to get we have to be strategic. I know when you think about relationships, you don't think about s- being strategic, but we got to have a plan in place. We have to identify the red flags in a relationship in order for our relationship to be successful. In order for us to grow as a person, we need to be able to identify red flags to know this is not going to be a long-term relationship, to know that yes, this is going to be a long-term relationship, but I'm gonna have to put in a little work. It is possible to have a long-term relationship, but I think we really need to sit down and examine ourselves and really examine ourselves. Why do I not want a long-term relationship? Well, because I'm afraid of it divorce. Why am I afraid of divorce? Well, because it's going to mess the kids up, or this person's going to take all of my money. Why do you think this person's going to take all your money? Well, because you got to ask the questions. You can't just sit and be okay with being in fear. You got to step out. Whatever is causing you to be fearful, whatever trauma you're experiencing or had experienced, you got to work through that. That's where is big that we have to take care of ourselves, know who we are in order for us to be in a successful relationship, to know what didn't work in this relationship. So I know to move on and do something differently in this relationship. What they tell you is the definition of craziness, doing the same thing, expecting different results. Got to do something different. Thank y'all for hanging out with me tonight. Allie, she said, I believe I told you before you got married. If your partner is breaking your bottom line, but says they will change, that is a flag on fire. Nothing but resentment will come from that. Yeah, basically. Thank y'all for hanging out with me tonight. It has been fun. We got to do this again. Come and hang out with your girl. I love the interaction. I love the comments. If you're watching this on replay, comment your stories of why you're not in a long-term relationship, or why you might be in a afraid to be in a long-term relationship. Y'all check me out, Texas Brown Sugar, on all social media. And I will see y'all next week.